This podcast is sponsored by Inside Out Group, the specialists in high-risk and challenging filming and time-lapse, covering health and safety videos for rail, construction, and infrastructure projects nationwide.
Okay, and welcome to this week's Safer Than Your Average podcast. On the show this week, we've got Jessy Gomes, IIRSM Council member. Jessy, over to you if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, so I think if you are IIRSM member, you've been kind of seeing a bit of my face, principally in the London Metropolitan branch for quite a few years now, nearly 6 years. So my name is Jessy Gomes, so I'm passionate about health and safety and well-being of the people, principally in construction sites. I started my career approximately 13 years ago, started in France, and then 10 years ago I arrived in UK to learn English. And I decided to add the safety hats into my curriculum because I was just a new graduate from a master in quality, health and safety and environmental management. And I did a bit of quality and environment in France. And then I decided just to go in UK, like somewhere like I don't even speak the language, and try to do a new job, which was like quite crazy at the time because I couldn't speak English. And this is like true story. I started my job as a CDM advisor for a company called Northcroft at the time that became bought out by Capita Simon. I just met an amazing mentor that is still my mentor up to date. And he gave me my first chance. And I guess he bet on me. And I'm glad he did, because today I can speak about my adventure as a health and safety advisor in UK. So thank you for inviting me.
That's awesome. If you want to just take us right back to the start, Jessy, tell us a bit about your background, where you grew up and your early life.
Yes, so I grew up in Picardy. So it's like up north of, if you take like Lille up north and Paris, right midway in between. I lived in Nogent-sur-Oise. It's close to Chantilly. If someone can kind of being really good with geography, I don't know, but it's in Picardy. And I was born in Paris actually, and then my parents moved up north. And I went to school there, and then later I went to uni in Paris and Amiens, which is also a country, a city in Picardy. So this is how I've been raised, really humble childhood. I'm the oldest of like 6 kids, and I've been raised with really resilience, focus, but also hard work. Parents who were like always telling me that I had to work harder always because I was Black, and wherever I will go, I will be expecting to work harder. So really with this in mind, I was like, okay, so you have to study, of course. This is what my parents were telling me. So I did do, I just execute. So I studied really well at school, and then I pursue a bachelor degree and a master degree, and now I'm doing a PhD, which is completely crazy, but I guess it's part of my upbringing, but also my the way of life. It's like continual learning, and I will never change that ever. And it's something I would like to give to my daughter as well. I would really want her to have value and work ethic. For me, it's really important. It's crucial. So, so yeah, this is like more or less my upbringing. So doing a lot of exercise. I've always been really active. That's why people look at me and say, Jessy, how can you do all these things? It's because I love to learn new things. I love to entertain myself and discover new things. And this is bring me where I am, like always asking for the question. And sometimes as a health and safety advisor, you could be like, back off. We don't want you here. You're asking too much questions. And I remember a time that I was called trouble as well, because I actually working as a health and safety advisor, but I'll come back later. But one of my first job, I was called trouble. So hello trouble in the morning, hello trouble in the evening. So bye trouble in the evening. So so this is how, with this upbringing and three brothers and two sisters and parents working really hard. My mom is a cleaner and my dad is a construction labor, doing concrete flooring, so really physical work. So I always seen my parents really work hard to being able to provide for the family. So they were always like, you have to study, so you will never do what I'm doing. So literally my mom was telling me that I should study, so I will not be cleaning offices, and I will be the person sitting at the desk rather than the person cleaning the desk.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something like always resonate with me to work and to be curious and to always pursue a better way, I think, and always like know better, to do better. So this is how I was raised. Yeah.
And put that real drive behind you to succeed and progress in your career. If we move on a little bit then, Jessy, just to talk about your first job out of university, what was your first job?
So basically, I remember my first job. You usually go for the easy job. So I had several first jobs. So my official first job was, I worked with my mom as a cleaner. So I was cleaning offices. What I remember, it's like people were not always kind to you because you're the cleaner. They will not say hello to you. They will ignore you, and you will be here smiling and saying hello, because I was raised to be always really polite no matter what. So I will always say hello, but I knew that people will not be responding because I was a cleaner. So one of my first job was like cleaning offices with my mom, because it was the easy way for me to make money. It's to go and work with my mom. Working with my dad would have been more complicated in construction side and doing concrete flooring. So I think the option was to work with my mom, but I also work as in a youth center. So I was looking after kids, and I actually had a certification, which I was like looking after kids from 2 years old up to 17. I actually work with all range of age, and I study psychology of kids and stuff. It's compulsory to be able to understand children, to be able to work with them. So I did that through all my summer during uni, and I also did cleanings job. I also work in Disneyland and Parc Astérix. Parc Astérix is one of the attraction park in France. So I also did that. So I had to wear and entertain kids, and sometimes I had to welcome people entering into attraction. So yeah, was like my three main jobs. So cleaning, working with children, and also working in attraction center and parks. Yeah.
So quite a diverse background then as well, Jessy, a few different jobs. How did you end up moving into health and safety then?
So I think I had to make a choice when I was about 16 years old. So my dad was like, be a doctor. He wanted me to become a medical doctor.
Yeah.
So it was always like, be the boss. You don't want to have a boss. You want to be at the top of the top of whatever you're doing, make sure you're the boss. And I was like, okay. And my mom was like more, do easy study, something simple, be just a nurse. 3 years study in France and become a nurse. It's easy. Don't get bothered to become a medical doctor. So I had like these two idea and two views. So I tried really hard to get to do medical school, but then I just decided at the end that it wasn't for me. And I went to study biology for a 2 years technical degree in biology with the idea to become a laboratory technician. And from there, I said, I'm not going to be the laboratory technician, thinking of my dad who was saying I have to be the boss. So I decided I'm going to be the boss of the laboratory. technician. So I did a bachelor degree in quality management. So when I get into quality management it was like biological industries, I then discovered that you could have two other hats, and actually three other hats, which was health and safety, well-being, but also environmental management. So I then did a master's degree in a quality, health and safety and environmental management system. And it was more integrated management system. So with this in mind, it was to become responsible managing health and safety, quality, health and safety and environment system, and being able to having a systemic view coming somewhere. So with this in mind, I then went to do quality jobs. And I worked for a manufacturing company who was producing jam. You know the jams that you find on yogurt sometimes. Yeah. So it was like every evening when I was coming back home, I was like bringing some of the jam to my family. So it could be like a strawberry jam, or it could be a mango jam, all type of things, because we had Häagen-Dazs as one of our clients. So it was like really, and I was also the one doing the quality, looking at, I was working in the laboratory, and sometimes you had to do looking at the quality of the product, but I was working as an assistant of the quality manager, of the quality director actually. So from there, I started to get like some, oh, I'd like to know more about safety. And I actually didn't go into safety straight away. My next job was then in environmental aspect, and I did touch into health and safety, but not as a majority. So I then work for an automobile company, manufacturer actually, in Paris. And really quite interesting, they were doing, you know, your seat belts that you have in your car. Yeah. Have one small devices that contain explosive in it. Right, okay. Oh, it's actually not on, you have it on your seat belt, just a button side, but you have also on your airbag as well. I don't know. The airbag like face, and could be quite dangerous actually. So they were fabricating these small devices that then used by car manufacturer. So it was like really high risk environment, because obviously we had storage of explosive, because to product we had to. So I was looking at health and safety, but also environmental management. And it's the same, I was assisting the director into this. It was like really one of my most interesting job to date, because it was like really high risk environment, and there were also a lot of interaction with the French authority as well. And we had a lot of waste reviews and waste slips, and all the storage, and we had to report on all our waste as well, which was like crucial and part of being compliant with the French regulation. So from there, I work for EDF. It's the Electricité de France. So it's now called Enedis. They actually it's a subsidiary of EDF at the time, and it's now called EDF. Enedis, sorry. So basically I was doing sustainable development completely under the spectrum. So I really try over the years to try to have a broad range of understanding of what is QHSE basically, and in various company as I could, and various industry. So from going to automobile, I then went into gas, and really, and electricity, because really EDF was a electricity provider is the electricity provider for France. And the subsidiaries that I work for was maintaining all the cables and the line on the entire France. So my job was to reduce the carbon footprint of all the technicians we had going around, meeting with clients who could be like corporate, but also individual clients. So I did that for a year as well, while I was preparing for my master degree. I always try to keep this practical side. So I did through my bachelor degree to my master, always practical. So I always had a job, and I did it in sandwich course, which was like more common in France. I think in UK, didn't get my head around it yet, but in France, you had the option to do apprenticeship. So I was like literally 3 weeks at uni and 3 weeks within a company. So I would be switching on and off like this until I get graduated. And this is like, it's the best option to get learning, but adding like some practice to the theory. So it was like really, really crucial to me to gain that. I think it was, I would have never done like 100% just study. And I think this is how going into a PhD, I kept my job working for Mace Group at the time. And I started my PhD because I wanted to really keep a feet on the ground and being able to bridge the academia into practice. I think that really these both should be seen as a more collaborative way of doing things rather than like separate. So I call myself a pro-academic rather than like an academic or a practitioner. So let's be a pro-academic, yeah.
That's a good theory.
So yeah, this is something that I really wanted to do. It's like really keep. So this is how I really, from working sustainable development, I decided to do more, to gain a proper health and safety experience. And I decided to come in UK to get that, like simple as that, not simple at all. Because I actually struggled to find my first job because I could simply not speak English. So this is like really a barrier for me to find a job. So my first job, it took me a few months to find it. And even when I found my first role, I was like always asking, why did I get the role? Because I couldn't really speak. But within a few months, I was like really well respected, and I could do my job properly. So so I'm happy that I tried, and since then I haven't left UK. So I'm sorry for people who don't want to see European UK, but I'm one of them. Coming from France, I haven't left, but now obviously with Brexit context, I'm more like, I'm not sure if I should stay. Yeah.
What was the first role that you moved into in the UK then, Jessy?
So I work as a CDM advisor. Okay. So no idea what was CDM though at the time. So I remember I was applying to any jobs. I just wanted a job. I wanted this first opportunity, you know, that sometimes you just need one opportunity and then the doors open and you can get anywhere you want. And I couldn't get, I was like going to so many interviews and I would not get the job. So my first job was working for Northcroft at the time, that became Capita Simon, bought out by Capita Simon. And as a CDM advisor, and I was advising clients like Costco, which is like a big one, and NHS as well. I was advising a mental health trust in South London. And yeah, these two were like my main project, but obviously I was like running several other projects, but this was like the biggest one. And yeah, CDM advisor for retail for Costco. that I advise in UK, but also in Spain. Yeah.
Okay.
And several years later, they also went to France, and I started Costco France a little bit before I moved on to my next role. Yeah.
So quite a lot of challenges then, trying to learn the language, trying to also learn the job and get an understanding of CDM while you're on the job advising the client, and always keeping that face up that you know what you're talking about and keep working
Yes.
with it. Yeah. So overcame quite a lot of adversity there. Can you talk us a bit now through your career journey then, Jessy, where you went after that and then progressing through to your career now?
Yeah, so after Capita, I then went, so basically, I'm really ambitious. So maybe after a year, I just wanted to progress, you know, normal. I mean, not everyone wants to progress in a job, but I'm one of them. And sometimes it could be really frustrating, but I then went to my boss and I said, okay, what's next then? Because I passed all the tests. You asked me to do the NABOSH, I did the NABOSH. You wanted it, I did it. You wanted me to be member of IIPS, I did it. You wanted me to be member of IIRSM, I did it. Okay, what's coming next then? Can I have a pay rise? And it really worked really hard to try to get me that pay rise. But you know, sometimes it's not down to your manager. But you know when you have a good manager because he will fight for you. And my first manager will fight for me every day, every single day. And he actually fight for me, and he managed to get me an offer on the table when I get another offer from Arcadis at the time. But I followed Arcadis, and I went to Arcadis, and my line manager was really sad, but I had to leave, and I wanted to see something else and the new challenges as well. So I went and worked for Arcadis to do some CDM and business assurance, and working for clients such as HSBC, John Lewis, Waitrose, doing CDM for retail banking and also projects. Yes, so this was like for about a year and a half working for Arcadis, and then from that I got an email, a phone call from one of the directors I used to work with. We didn't work really together, but she knew me, and she then said, you should come and work for me. She was director of health and safety at the time, and she invited me for an interview. She said, we're having this amazing client coming up. You know about health and safety, you can speak French, I think you're the right candidate. And it was to work for EDF and for the nuclear power plant in Hinkley-upon-Sea in Somerset. So I worked for 3.5 years. The design phase was quite extensive, more than 10 years. And when I joined in, we were still designing. And then at the end of my 3rd year, we were moving to Bristol to be closer to the site and work there. So I commute there for a year, and then I come back to Mace and I said, okay, what's next? Because I was about to get married, and my fiancé wanted me in London. So I said, why don't we move to Bristol? It's quite nice, but it didn't work that way. So I said to Mace, would you find me a project in London? And they've been amazing, because one of the ops director at the time was like really keen to retain me as part of the team. So she really worked to provide me with my next opportunity in London and make things easier for me. And I stayed in London, and I worked for Goldman Sachs, looking after the last phases of their European headquarters in London, close to
a phenomenal project.
Yeah, all bonds
very super project.
Yeah. So I arrived right at the end when we had a dual contractor working, and they needed someone to ensure collaboration between, because CDM, it's all about having like collaboration and communication and cooperation between the main duty holder. But this case was quite particular because we had 2 main contractors on site. finishing the base build and one starting the fit out, which was like really a high risk environment at that time. So this was really, really challenging because it was a lot of pressure to finish on time, but also to avoid any accident and make sure to delimit area between the contractors as well, and make sure that everyone was doing what they said they're gonna do. So I was a health and safety advisor for Goldman Sachs and ensuring that the dual principal contractor were doing their job. So this is what I did for a few months until I then joined MACE development. So they needed someone to oversee the development business of MACE from a health and safety point of view. Mm-hmm. Then I was leading health and safety within the department. I mean, when I say leading, I was the only one there, but I was the point of contact for the property developer, and from how do we set up the project and making sure that we comply with the CDM regulation and the health and safety regulation, from protecting the site to making sure that when we're going to start on site, the principal contractor provides us with all the necessary documentation, which I had to review it, and also look at biddings and collaboration and communication as well between the client, which was MACE development, and also the principal contractor and the various consultants as well. Yeah. So this was like a pretty challenging role as well, because it's nearly like a new environment, new setup, and it's really fast. And we're talking here about, not that in nuclear we don't talk about real money, but when you think about nuclear in terms of like safety culture, these guys know what they're talking about. When you're more in like property development side, I won't say that they don't take things as seriously. I just think that it's just different level. Construction culture and nuclear culture, safety culture is not the same. And so I had to kind of readapt into the construction safety culture way, which was pretty big of a shock, because when you work in nuclear, they do have this questioning attitudes that they talk about all the time. So it was like deeply ingrained inside me that I will be always have questioning attitudes.
The questions, yeah.
Yes, in construction. And when you have cost, budgets, and quality and health and safety, it's like a systemic view. You're looking after health and safety, and you have your client who is looking at his finance and saying we have to go now, and you like, no, I need this information first. So it was like another pace, I will say, and it was really interesting, and I really did enjoy working in property development. Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah.
And pretty tough time to pick up on a project as well, right at the kind of handover stage from construction to fit out, especially with a dual principal contractor. It's a very complicated CDM setup to get them interacting with each other and working together to deliver the project.
Yeah, and sometimes the setup of a project is not really straightforward for a property development project, because you have sometimes different settings, like from the site settings point of view. Sometimes you have like remote location, you have really tiny footprints that you have to work on. You have to take into account the member of the public. You have to also think through the budget, and also the delays that you can have on the schedule as well, which really keep people under pressure. Yeah. So it's really a different context. Yeah. Because when I was working in nuclear, it was like, I mean, it was a 12 years project.
Yeah.
It's like, but when you walk into a property development, you have like a tight deadline. You know that you start on site the 1st of September from 1 year, and you know that a year later or a year and a half later, it has to be finished. And there's no joke about it. So, and you have to make sure that the site is safe and nobody will die from buildings, the building. So yeah.
So in a career completely filled with challenges, including learning English on the job, moving countries, learning CDM on the job when you were trying to establish yourself in your first role in the UK, what's been your biggest challenge in health and safety?
I think my biggest challenge was, I think it's being a woman. I know a lot of women in construction will say, yeah, it's never been an issue for me to be a woman in a man environment. But for me, at some point, I started to, I think at the beginning, it wasn't a problem because I was so bold and so not bothered and more resilient. But at some point in my career, you start to see things, you start to be more attentive, I will say, into certain type of behavior. So my biggest challenge is, it's one of my clients that was like really, I mean, it's probably an individual issue here, but will be really difficult to work with. Yeah. And so having to advise this client, you will be always like thinking, what is the problem? Because you don't know if it's because you're woman, you don't know if it's because you're Black, you don't know if it's because you're French, you don't know if it's because you're married. I don't know, it could be all sorts of things going through your mind when you have so many intersectionalities going on. So I think I just stick into doing my job really, and into being as most professional as possible. But at some point you get hit by the slap, you know, you get in your face, and one day you just don't send, you just gone. And this happened to me. I was just gone, and I couldn't get up anymore because I received so many slaps that I was just not responsive. And I think the worst moment was when I came back from maternity leave, because you're just vulnerable basically. So you not as strong as you usually are. So it's like it's the best time for anyone to try to put someone down when you're normal, you know, we're talking now into new normal. It's not normality when you come back from maternity leave, you know. So I think I would wish that more organization will be more emotionally clever in a way that they welcome young mum back into the office.
Yeah, how they're welcoming them back to the business. I saw that in my own wife when she was going back to work after having her first daughter, that she found it really tough. It was really mentally challenging. She worked in the aviation industry and she was away travelling away during the day. She would maybe do a 12 or 14-hour day flying to one of the European destinations that they flew to and coming back, and she found it really mentally taxing to be away for such a long time and be a new mum and thinking, what's going on at home, who's got the little one, how is she being looked after, I'm stuck, I'm not able to sort this out, and then having all of the added pressure of dealing with members of the public in her instance. But yeah,
I think women don't have to take the pressure if they have the option. This is the thing. You don't always have the option to say no, and you just go with what it's offered to you when you come back. But I will say to any woman, if you have the option, just get out, really, because there's no point, because you saw, I mean, for me, I think personally, I felt that I was vulnerable at that time. So it's not the best time to try to get any person to take any big decision or trying to make changes. That's why the law protects women when they come back from maternity leave, from malicious acts, or sometimes it's not even, it could be, or it can be conscious or unconscious. but law still protect women. So I think that manager and organization must be more cautious about return to work policy. And it's not all about a woman returning to work as well, because you have people coming back to work from surgery as well. And I have been in that case as well, because a year before I had to have a surgery. And when I come back, it was like, I was just walking through the office, like I never left, when I was away for 1 month, one entire month.
Yeah.
I have to recover. And I must say, I never missed any single day at work, because I'm really, really, really professional, and I will give everything. So if I had to be away, it was after a surgery, to tell you how bad it was. And I actually pushed down the surgery as much as I could, and I couldn't after. I had to get the surgery. So yeah, I think it's really, really important. Yeah.
Having seen you present at the IIRSM Metropolitan branch a few times, Jessy, you're an absolute enigma when you come into the room. You're absolutely full of energy all of the time. So if you were off work, it was for something serious.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
moving on a little bit then, Jessy. If you want to talk us through where you're at in your career now, what are you doing with yourself now?
Oh, so now, in a corporate world, people will say I'm between jobs, but in my world, I'm not between jobs. I'm so busy. I mean, I have a 1-year-old daughter. I'm doing a PhD. It's a lot of things that can fill up your day. I have left my last job, so I'm now looking for new opportunities. So we never know. So,
Sure. So if anybody's watching and they want to recruit Jessy, you'll get her on LinkedIn. Very varied career, especially if you're looking for a French speaker for your project. Get in touch with her.
I
She's
do
very
speak
experienced.
Spanish and Portuguese as well.
Yep, there you go. So continuing on from there then, Jessy, you mentioned that you're studying a PhD. What's your PhD in?
So my PhD is looking at a construction firm, and principally how organizations organize themselves, and in terms of like knowledge, but also in terms of learning. How do we, construction company, learn and manage our knowledge from, from capturing that knowledge to transferring and capitalizing that knowledge? I've been quite curious while I was working for MACE about how do we really learn? Do we actually learn? We collect a lot of, we collect or we don't collect knowledges, but what do we actually do with that? Mm-hmm. So my PhD will be around organizational learning. It's how we as an organization organize ourselves to learn, basically, and what is our human desire to learn, and what are the also no organizational learning without knowledge as well. So what is the knowledge management processes? How do we identify, transfer, share our learning, and how from a human perspective do we organize ourselves and showing our human desire to learn? So and I bring the health and safety and well-being perspective into this, because I think that if we learn better and if we share our knowledge, if we capitalize our knowledge, it will have an impact into the occupational health, safety, and well-being. So this is really my main important key ideas. It's how can we steer this health, safety, and well-being system performance, and how can we break through the current statistic of the health and safety executive who've been quite stagnant over the year and strangely provided in a way that we don't really feel that something has changed over the year. So I think there's really something to be done there. So I'm exploring it, because I mean, a PhD has a framework of a short framework of time. So I nearly feel that it's a lifetime job here rather than a PhD, really. But I'm looking to break through the health and safety statistics that have been plateaued for a few years using knowledge management and organizational learning.
Awesome, awesome. So that probably brings me on to my next question. You've had quite a long and varied career across multiple countries, worked for some big name organisations on some really big super projects. Um, what advice would you give to someone that's maybe starting out in health and safety today and chose it as a career path?
Um, what advice, can you repeat the question, Blair?
What advice would you give to someone starting out in health and safety today as a career?
Yes, so basically I say stay curious, because for me it's you can't be complacent with health and safety. The law change, people change, our environment change all the time. Everything is like flexible, and within this health and safety system you need to be curious to try to be able to challenge the status quo. So for me it's really one thing will be stay curious, and always have this questioning attitude, and never take no for an answer and any answer for the truth, because an answer um, it's always an idea, but sometimes it's not the truth. You know, people say to you their truth that is not the truth. So stay curious. I said too, it's really keep motivation and drive. I think really some things that I stick with me during all these years is to really stay focused into where I wanted my career to steer. And it's really to know where you want to be and to work towards this. So I always knew I wanted to learn. So I was always making sure that I was put on training, and I always get as much training as I could, because today I can sit before you and tell you that I get such and such training by many companies, but today the training are mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really make sure that you work harder on yourself than on your job, which is mean. Stay professional, do your job, but make sure that you get this personal mastery, because I think this is really important, because most of the organizations, they think of the financial interest. And I think sometimes it's good to switch and to think about personal mastery, and thinking about what the person in front of you want for themselves, and by having it, how they can actually perform better for you, you know? So I think it's really important that to think about how to be a good professional and a good person. So beyond doing your day-to-day job, think always about progressing as a professional, but also for yourself, and stay by staying curious, and keeping this drive and motivation, and keeping this search for learning if it's what you want to do. Some people don't want to do it, so it's fine. So I would say for these people, just stay professional and do your job. And for the one who want to push it harder, get as much training as you can. Make sure to keep your CPD up to date. Go to IIRSM meeting and events, and make sure to do what I think it's a core as well, is networking. Make sure you meet with people that are already where you want to be, for example, and reach out and ask them to meet for a coffee, or have a chat, or give you a piece of advice. It's as simple as that. So I think it's really important to have mentor and coaches around you. And you don't have to have one mentor or one coach. Have several. I have loads of mentor and coach.
Oh, brilliant. That's great advice, Jessy. And you mentioned keeping your CPD up to date. We've not really touched on any of your IOSH career, which has been a bit of a second career. Do you want to tell us a bit about some of the stuff that you've done with the London Metropolitan branch, as well as the IOSH Council?
Yeah, things have been pretty quiet for me lately, but I'm gonna start pressing the button IOSH on LinkedIn pretty soon. And but I started in IOSH approximately 6 years ago. Was really keen to see people who looks more like me, because I walked into a meeting and they were I couldn't like really relate, and it was like really not diverse environments. Even in terms of like diversity of thinking, I think you have to have a variety of people to have diversity of thinking. So for me, it was like really crucial that I tried to approach the chair. So this is what I did. Simply as that, I approached the chair at the time of the London Metropolitan Branch, and I said that I would like to be part of the committee. So I applied, and I got part of the committee. And I really, for me, was like I was that woman, that Black woman, who other people who look like me, who do not look like me, will come because I was approachable, I was smiley, I was I was like really thinking that it's good to have like a variety of people, and I think that I could be a great asset for IIRSM London Metropolitan Branch. So this is how I started, by helping setting up meeting, making sure to attend committee meeting, and make my contribution to how who will be the next speaker, how do we looking at the feedback of a member and understand more what can we do better, and by collecting feedback. And I think, by the way, this is what construction industry should do as well, is try to collect more feedback and principally client feedback. So yeah, this is what I did for a few years, and then I moved on, then kind of having like promotion within the branch. Yeah. So from there, I became a communication manager, and I was no time to lose lead with the branch. So I will be providing awareness session about various subjects, such as the diesel gas exhaustion. It could be also solar radiation. It was asbestos and silica dust as well. Yep. These are really like important campaign IIRSM has been having over the years, and I was relaying them, and I will be relaying them more going forward. I've been on maternity leave, so I was pretty busy, but now I'm gonna press the button IIRSM. So coming from that, I then 6 weeks after I gave birth, I applied to become a council member. Yeah, I had no idea. I had the chair of the IIRSM London Metropolitan Branch at Jessy, I think you should apply. And I was like, I wasn't ready at all. I was like one of the last persons to apply for the role. And the member voted for me. So I'm really pleased that, and he kind of reassured me that they wanted to see someone different, part of the council. They wanted someone to be able to talk for them behind closed door, and making sure that this person could be accountable and being able to say, okay, hold on, I think we should do this for a member. And I think over the years, we pretty much had an idea of the kind of person I am, because they saw me at the branch. So I guess that most of the people who voted for me were people who knew me from the London Met and from my various activity within IIRSM. So I haven't let you down. Bear with me. But pretty soon be doing a lot of posts on LinkedIn.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I think that that clarifies something that I've been telling a lot of people. When I first started out going to the IIRSM meetings, people used to say to me, why are you bothering going to that? It's an old boys club, you won't fit in, you're a young person, they won't be interested in you. And now what I tell people is, well, come along and find out. If you want to see a change in a branch or at an executive level through the council, put your name out there, volunteer, get involved and make the change rather than talk about it. Yeah.
Yes, and I'll encourage more people to also put their application forward. We are looking for more council member. I mean, now for this year, there are no more application, but you can vote for who you want to see. But why not put your application forward for next time? But make sure that you have your say by putting the right people in front of the IIRSM governance team. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So very diverse career, Jessy. Loads of different experiences across a couple of countries, as we've mentioned. Some really great businesses that you've worked for. and I think you've had a fantastic career. Just to sum up, I think that your career path indicates that there's no wrong path. Where you end up is where you end up in business, and if you work hard and try and progress and have that mindset of progression, it'll all start to open up for you. And I think you're a real inspiration to people in the industry, and just keep up the great work. Thanks
Oh,
very much
thank
for
you.
coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I hope that my main idea was to inspire everyone, a man or woman, to push their career forward, to be inspired, and I hope that I managed to do that.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Jessy.
Thank you, Blair.
This podcast is sponsored by Inside Out Group, the specialists in high-risk and challenging filming and time-lapse, covering health and safety videos for rail, construction, and infrastructure projects nationwide. This podcast is sponsored by Inside Out Group, the specialists in high-risk and challenging filming and time-lapse, covering health